Welcome back to the podcast. Jason here. And on this week's episode, we have Dr. Stephen Gilliland joining us. Stephen is a university professor over at Claremont Graduate University, where he teaches organizational psychology and is responsible for developing executive education and leadership development programs. He has consulted for small and large organizations and conducted leadership training all around the world. He has served on boards for several organizations. He has a wide variety of hobbies, pulling from surfing, gardening, winemaking, playing music. In this week's episode, we talk all about ethical decisions around leadership, simple ways to perform leadership through transparency. And we talk about his upcoming book, Pushing Up, where he wrote with his brother, 12 months, over 100,000 push-ups, lessons for connection, leadership, and purpose. Great conversation. We dig into lessons we can learn from exercise to apply to the leader development and organizational psychology and life, as well as we get in the nitty-gritties about the book writing process and what are some optimal ways to organize our attention to do the work that we care about. And in this case, writing a book. So enjoy the podcast, go out, order the book on December 1st. And as always, thank you for your attention. And this episode is brought to you by the law offices of Larry H. Parker. Look, there's a reason why they are Southern California's #1 automobile, motorcycle, workplace, personal injury law firm. Our family never forgets to do their job, to fight for you. They've been successful in 95% of their cases. Over $2 billion recovered for 100,000 clients. Call, email, chat with them, larryhparker.com, 1-800-333-000. They'll fight for you.
We'll fight for you.
Hablamos español.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Really happy to be here.
So my first question is, take me back to Stephen Gilliland, pre-Michigan State University.
Way, way back.
Before your PhD, embarking on the PhD. What got you into studying leadership or consulting for leadership? Where was that motivation originating from?
Well, okay, so going way back that far, I was actually pre-med as in college. I was going to be a doctor. And after a year and a half of pre-med, it's just like, I realized, I can't memorize. I'm terrible at that. And doesn't work so well for medicine. And I just saw what the people going into medicine were like. It just didn't fit for me. I got fascinated with psychology. And although I didn't have a class in organizational psychology, I was exposed to that idea. I met with an organizational psychologist, and I just got fascinated with this idea of psychology of people at work. I mean, what really reached me is that we spend so much of our time and energy at work. It's such a big part of our life, and that thought of how do we make a difference? How do we make it better? How do we impact people at that level? That, I think, it started me on this journey of people's experience at work.
Did you have a particular work experience that made you go, I think I can make this better?
Heck yeah. Okay. So after when I was growing up, I worked on my uncle's farm for 6 summers in northern Alberta, driving tractor.
Oh, wow.
14 on. But my first real job after those summer jobs was when I was in college. I got a job at a hospital laundry. And I don't know if there's anybody out there listening who's a graduate of a hospital laundry, but that's in my mind one of the worst places to work. I should have known that when they were interviewing me for this job, he looks at my application and says, "I see you've worked on a farm. That's probably going to come in handy because then you shouldn't be too grossed out by what you encountered here." That should have been the first sign. But I just saw so many fascinating counterintuitive things that people were doing there. People who were breaking the rules, violating the process to get the job done. And there was no incentive for it. Like, people who were drying things a little too hot and not cooling down quite enough because there wasn't enough dryer capacity. If they didn't break the rules, we wouldn't have been able to process all the laundry the hospital was producing. They didn't have enough equipment. Everybody knew this, and the supervisors would reprimand us if they caught us. But they kind of wanted us to do it because it was the only way we'd get it done. And so it was like this, almost this tacit, implicit breaking the rules that wasn't officially sanctioned. In fact, it was officially punished if they caught you, but we all did it anyway. And while I was doing it, I was like, why am I doing this? Why are we all doing this? We're not being paid extra for this. There's no incentive. Why are we doing this? That fascination of the motivation of it really kind of reached me in terms of, why do people do stuff like this at work?
Yeah, and do you find it can be different between rules that are there for a purpose that everyone feels we shouldn't be doing this, that are actually like in there for a reason, versus rules that they're kind of not there for any reason? But so does it feel better or easier to break rules that feel like there's no real purpose for them in the first place?
It definitely does. But the fascinating one to me, where it was rules that were there that we knew for us for a purpose, and it was for our own good. When you're working with the laundry comes in different colored bags, and green from the OR, and red is contamination. It means it's coming from really, really sick wards and so on. You wear masks and gloves. You're supposed to wear them all the time, but it's way too hot in a hospital laundry, so everybody takes off the masks and the gloves, and you can't open the knots in the bag without the gloves. So here we are working with this red contaminated stuff, and we're the ones at risk.
Yeah.
And yet we're the ones breaking the rules because the job just can't be done. If you're wearing rubber gloves, you can't undo knots that are inevitably in the tops of these bags. So we all broke these rules, putting ourselves at risk, and making barely above minimum wage. And the whole time I'm doing the same thing, but I'm also watching myself do this thing. This is weird. What causes us to do this?
Yeah.
What causes us to break these rules, put ourselves at harm for the betterment of this organization?
Yeah, the perceived benefits of something which actually has way more actual risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and downsides. So does this relate to leadership? Wait, are you saying that leaders break rules sometimes?
They break rules, definitely, and they encourage us to break rules. And I think that's the fascinating one. I had a really interesting conversation a few years back with the former CEO of Walgreens. And we were talking about this idea of breaking rules. And his name was Jeff Rain. And he used to do a newsletter every couple of weeks or months for all the employees of Walgreens called Raindrops. In one of his raindrops, he talked about the importance of breaking rules. And he talked about how we have rules for a reason here at Walgreens, but sometimes you just have to break them to do the right thing for the customer. And to me, that was really powerful. The CEO of a major corporation telling his employees, sometimes you have to break our rules if it's the right thing for the customer. I felt that was a really liberating and honest view of leadership, because I think a lot of leaders believe that. Not many of them have the guts to say that.
Yeah, sometimes there's conflicting axioms or principles of like rules are made to be broken. It's a cliche, but there's a feeling of being like holding true to rules makes someone feel honorable.
Yeah.
Where's the balance between those two?
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, because part of following rules is providing us process fairness and procedural justice. This idea of I'm being treated fairly because I'm being treated the same as other people. The same rules are being followed for me as other people. If I'm being disadvantaged by those rules, or by people who are not following the rules, I get really outraged. There was a procedure here. I was supposed to be interviewed along with everybody else. I didn't get my fair share. That feels wrong to me. So there are times when we definitely want those rules to be followed for us. But I think all of us, there's this kind of interesting idea. We sometimes we want to be treated like everybody else, but sometimes we want to be treated uniquely like nobody else. And I think good leaders are the ones who figure out when's the right time to follow the rules, when's the right time to reach out and treat somebody just a little differently because they need it.
Yeah, to me that screams, this unique support, this individualized consideration. Each person is a different person. And although that there is this generalized leadership approach, that there is an effective version of that, there also needs to be caring and supporting for each person uniquely and connecting with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree, because that's really what bonds people to a leader and to an organization. When they feel like an individual, they feel like they're being seen individually. Nobody wants to feel like a cog in a great big machine.
Yeah.
They want to be seen as an individual. And I think good leaders do that. They make everybody feel like they've got a special relationship with that leader.
Yeah, to me, that was kind of the basis for a lot of my first research project about what makes individualized consideration for a leader and how does someone develop that. And I was looking into more of the emotional mindfulness side, that a leader who's able to remain present, they're able to pick up on the emotions in the other person and within themselves, that hopefully can create some individualized consideration. What do you see as an antecedent to creating this unique support where someone can actually, a leader can pay attention to the unique things of that moment and act accordingly?
The big one for me is empathy. It comes down to that empathy. I was doing a bunch of leadership training for Microsoft a few years ago, and read Satya Nadala's book, Hit Refresh, where he talks about the culture change he was trying to institute at Microsoft. For me, a really fascinating part of his message, and a core part of his message, was the embracing of empathy as a core value in Microsoft. Now think about that, a tech company that makes software and hosts, data in the cloud, talking about empathy as a core value. I was just like, whoa, it made it like rock my world. Like this is a leader that I admire. I think when we have that empathy, we understand what that person is we're leading is going through. We understand what they're feeling, what they're struggling with.
Mm.
That allows us to connect with them in a completely unique way.
And then find those moments when you can promote rule breaking or enforce some sort of like rewards for following the rules.
Yeah, and really understanding what your person needs at that moment. I've had some employees, I've been in, I spent about 20 years in academic leadership positions. So my experience in leadership is both doing it, teaching it, studying it. But in those 20 years of doing it, I had some people who really irritated me. I could have used a worse word there, but I'm going to say, really irritated me. And sometimes when I get really frustrated, I just take a step back, almost step out of my body and look at the Stephen who's so frustrated and think about, okay, but what is their perspective? Where are they coming at this from? Are they really trying to irritate you, or what are they feeling? And when I was able to do that, often I was able to see the situation completely differently. And I think I was able to respond much more effectively as a leader by stepping away and taking a look at the world from their shoes.
Yeah, perspective taking with that. One of the moments in my life that led me to wanting to study leadership was playing high school baseball. And our team had this value of determination. We had it on our t-shirts. We had banners of it on our batting cages. And I remember being so determined and really owning and trying to take this value. It was probably my first moment in which values were explicitly pronounced. And I was like, I want to follow that value. I never really had that before in my life, right? I saw a value and I really intentionally drove towards it. And I felt like it was determination and perseverance. There's a third one, I'm kind of forgetting my mind right now. But I remember trying to follow these to the heart, and I was really into it. And my coach, the head coach, wouldn't reward for that behavior. He wasn't noticing it. In fact, he would actually do some behaviors that were antithetical to the values of determination and perseverance. And he was rewarding other people who weren't following those types of behaviors. And that was very frustrating to me. And that's one reason why I was interested in what does good leadership mean. And I guess in that sense, there was a rule breaking of this underlying contract. I'll follow the values and I'll get some sort of reward for it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. What you're saying on the other side is when a leader doesn't follow some sort of explicit rule
or value. I mean, I'll tell you one that works for me is, I'm a big believer in fairness, and that's my career has been spent studying fairness in organizations. What does it mean to treat employees fairly? One of the litmus tests for me as a leader in terms of treating people fairly is if I ever say, here's what we're going to do, but don't tell anyone else about it. It's those words, but don't tell anyone else about it. I know I've made a bad decision. I know that I am not creating fairness at that moment. The fact that I'm wanting to hide what I'm doing, to me, is a sign that there's something that I'm not comfortable with what I'm doing. And I've learned to, as soon as I'm thinking that, I've got to pivot and do something different. That to me is that if I have to hide a decision, it's not a good decision. And that's why I try and teach leaders is this transparency. We should be able to post our decisions on a wall. We should be able to share them with people, and we should be able to defend them and explain them. If we can't, we better go back and take a look at them again.
So if I'm, feeling this desire to hide because I'm making a decision that I don't feel good about, as a leader, should I be vulnerable and let my neck show? And it's scary to do that, to put myself on the line and be vulnerable about something.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's really scary is when we make mistakes as leaders, to tell people I made a mistake.
But there's a benefit to that, you're saying.
There's huge benefit because now we're open, we're showing people we're real. We actually get respect out of that. We're also role modeling it to others, showing people it's okay to make mistakes as long as we talk about it and learn from them. I think there's a power. It's also another one is asking for help. As leaders, we all feel like imposters in some ways. And it's interesting, I've talked to leaders up to the highest level, and there's that feeling of being isolated and an imposter, and why did they put me in charge? Who gave me the keys to the car? There's this feeling of not quite maybe being enough. And I think that feeling leads us to not want to admit when we don't know, not want to admit when we need help. I constantly am encouraging leaders to ask for help. Ask your people for help. I think that's such a humbling and humanizing thing for leaders to do. Is ask your people for help.
So transparency washes away imposter syndrome. Vulnerability and transparency just washes it away.
Yeah, and you end up, at least in my experience, I end up feeling a lot more authentic as a leader, a lot more connected when I show that vulnerability.
So that's a good time to pivot maybe to your book.
Yeah,
we're talking about connection and the power of connection and leadership and purpose, and how this devotion to consistent exercise with your brother led to those three sort of values. It's because that's the subtitle of the book, right? Pushing up. So tell me, how does exercise relate to those values?
Yeah, there is something powerful in exercise. I have so many directions I want to go over with that question, Jason, but let me take it on first, and then I'll back up and give more context. But I think there is a connection between exercise and our minds. I have found that if I'm having writer's block, if I'm struggling with what I'm doing, if I'm feeling overwhelmed with too much to do, if I take 30, 45 minutes and go for a run, I'm going to do better. It got to the point when writing this book where I would purposely go out and run before doing a major bit of writing, just because I know I'm going to feel better. My mind's going to be more active. My creativity is going to be awakened. I have no idea what it does, but there's this powerful connection between exercise and opening up, energizing our minds.
Yeah, I saw a study recently that looked at how long distance runners had similar brain patterns as long-term meditators.
Interesting.
That meditation has a similar effect as long distance running and vice versa.
I totally get that, because it's interesting when writing this book, our publisher actually had us do some meditation. Kind of interesting to have a publisher do meditation. Each meeting we started with like a 5-10 minute meditation, which is really interesting. And what I found is that experience I got meditation was not that dissimilar to what I get from running. It's just that centering. It's a time for myself, my mind. And as you're running, as you're exercising, especially if it's something repetitive like that, you don't have to put a lot of mental energy into the physical part. And that allows you to kind of get into your mind, not in a rumination sort of way, but in a flowing sort of way. That's my experience anyway.
Yeah, especially if it's done in a way of like when you're running to just effortlessly run. It doesn't have to be a push. It can be just one foot from the other, just nice and effortless.
Yeah.
And in that kind of rhythm, as humans, we love rhythm, and it becomes this nice way to find balance, let the water settle. And also things come up that are in the behind the scenes and knowing us. I remember, I get the same difficulties with starting to run as starting my meditation practice, where sometimes I'll be running and I'll start itching and I'll start moving. And I don't want to do this anymore. What am I doing? I don't want to do this. The same thing with practicing where I'm sitting in stillness. The same things can come up where what am I doing? I don't want to do this. All the different voices can come up, and to deal with those and to find a sense of comfort in befriending the different voices that can come up has benefit.
I think you're totally right. And I think that relates to kind of creative exercise activities too. And let me tell you what I'm thinking there is that for everybody, at least everybody I know, running isn't always 100% enjoyable. I mean, there's a point in every run where I say, what am I doing? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. You're still just running. I don't want to do this at all.
Right. This sucks. What do I do this for? But no, I don't have to do this. I could be in bed at home. And you have to kind of push through that and keep going. I think it's the same with, I find the same with writing is there are points when you're just like, I'm stuck. I'm not feeling creative. And you just have to push through and keep going. I think that the parallels there, and maybe that's why to me, running, other exercise is a good precursor to doing something creative like writing, is because it not only opens the mind up, but it kind of prepares you for that perseverance, that pushing through, that willingness to just keep going.
Yeah, and it makes me think about how when I am running and I have that voice come up of like, just stop doing this, and saying, all right, I see you, I hear you, what's up, how's it going, but I'm gonna keep doing it. How that can relate to a leader being transparent.
Yeah,
because it comes up of like, just hide, show that you're powerful, show that you're part of an authoritative figure, and then to be able to say, no, I'm going to be transparent despite all the alarms going off in my head, signaling imposter syndrome, signaling this need to be a powerful authoritative figure, and be transparent anyways.
Yeah, I totally think you're right there. What's interesting with undertaking this challenge with my brother and writing this book, he is a leader. He's the CEO of a financial services firm in Vancouver. I've had a lot of leadership experience, but we were approaching it from kind of the academic and the practitioner, and we were both pushing through a lot of challenges that year, health-wise, family-wise, different things. That connection that we had through exercise, to me, there was something beyond just the exercise, but that connection to another person going through this, that commitment to another person, it somehow, even though it was almost all by text messages, somehow it brought us deeper and closer together. It made us more as individuals, but more as brothers and as friends and as people together.
You think a large part of that is due to the commitment of mutual exercise?
I think it is. And if you think about the idea, commitment is often when we talk about commitment, we talk about it from a sense of I will try. I will, barring unforeseen circumstances, I will do this. But as soon as you add in that barring unforeseen circumstances or the word try in there, you're waffling on that commitment. and what we did with each other, we're committing to do a workout every day for a year. It was an I will. It doesn't matter if I'm sick. It doesn't matter if I'm traveling. It doesn't matter what else is going on. I will do that. And it was really embracing that notion of an I will commitment. To me, that was powerful. I mean, that was probably the thing I worried about most when he texted me on New Year's Eve with this challenge. hey, bud, I got an idea for you. I'm just like, yeah, I'm young. I have a couple drinks into New Year's Day. And yeah, that sounds good. I'll do it. Sure. And then when he said, it doesn't matter what you're doing, no matter how you're feeling, how sick you are, we're going to each work out every day and we'll text a picture to each other to prove we've done it. Then it was just like, whoa, this is real. Can I do this? And that was the biggest fear I had was, can I really commit to something like this? Because I knew that if I would commit to it, I wasn't going to break that commitment. I wasn't going to break it. And the biggest fear to me was not the exercise, not could I do it physically, it was, could I do that sort of commitment?
And how does that kind of commitment relate to our feeling of purpose?
I think it's huge, really related. I mean, because if you think there was no purpose to doing 365 exercises, there's, I mean, yes, maybe it makes me in better shape, but at the end of the year, I still had on the extra 5 pounds that I had at the beginning of the year. So it didn't really help out from that perspective. But I think it did really deepen a sense of purpose. I think it made each of us more cognizant of what we were doing. I was 52 at the time. He was in his mid 40s. Both kind of in that, successful professional, but what is the bigger purpose of things type feeling. I think this gave us a glimpse into the bigger purpose. And I really feel it comes to that connection. In fact, what was the interesting thing is we did this whole year, and it wasn't until writing the book that we really started to explore, why did we do this? Why did we actually do this? And and in fact, we wrote the first draft of the book, and the publisher, and even my wife Cindy, she was just like, you got to go deeper because people want to know why you did this. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to know why I did this too. And it took actually the revision process, really thinking about uncovering scars and so on, and realizing that I think I wanted to be a better brother to my younger brother, ever since childhood. Ever since I left home when to go to college when he was still pretty young. He's 7 years younger than me. I think there was a lot of unresolved scars there, and this commitment, this connection to him, was a way for us to build a deeper bond as brothers.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that hits me as the youngest of 3 brothers, for sure. To feel that brotherly connection is very powerful. And the idea of going all in is something that I'm fascinated with. This idea that when we decide to commit all the way and say, like you said, if I'm committing to this I will, I'm not going to break it. And that's a big commitment. And the power that is created when we take responsibility and take on that responsibility to commit and go all in on something.
Yeah, and there's almost an addictive element to it. I mean, there's something is
like it snowballs.
Yeah,
you want to take on more as you are starting to find success in going all in.
Completely. We started off the year doing push-ups, just kind of getting push-ups going and so on. And I started the year, I was able to do 17 or something like that. But by mid-February, I was up to doing 40 push-ups at a time and doing a couple sets of them. He hits me in mid-February with a text message saying, "Hey bud, got an idea for you. How about you and me each do 10,000 push-ups in March? We'll call it March Madness." I'm just like, what? My head's exploding. And he goes, no, you can do it. He said, you can already do 40. If you do 5 sets in the morning, that's 200. Do another 3 sets in the afternoon, that's 120. You do 320 every day. You've got 10,000 in the month. I mean, he gave me this huge, seemingly crazy, audacious goal. And then he gave me a path to how to do it. I mean, isn't that like the ultimate coaching right there?
Yeah.
And so we worked up to it and ended up doing it. And in fact, for April, we first, to celebrate our month of 10,000 push-ups, we decided, let's do 1,000 push-ups each on April Fool's Day. And we did it. And it just, I mean, once we had scaled that mountain, it just kept going. We did 15,000 in June, we did 20,000 in September. And then to kind of cap off the year for this December, we decided, let's do 1,000 push-ups a day.
Wow.
30,000 push-ups in December. And that's, I mean, and that gets back to that feeling of, I don't want to be doing this. I mean, I can tell you after about 3-4 days of 1,000 push-ups, you're like 180 push-ups into it, and you're just like, this sucks. I hate this. I don't want to do any
You're
push-ups.
walking around, with your arms forward, your chest
Right.
is so big, you're chimping around, your knuckles are dragging on the ground.
But there's that feeling of scaling the mountain. I mean, the first time when I was able to do a set of 100 push-ups, that blew my mind. It was just like, who have I become? I'm not a person who does stuff like this. And now I just did 100 push-ups without stopping. That's crazy. There's something really that kind of got into us that year.
Yeah, and it's not something that you're like, I want to be this, and then you decided to embark on it, and you arrived at it, and you're like, yep, I became the thing I wanted. It's this sort of mystery that you step into, that suddenly you arrive at this place and you go, I didn't know I would become who I am today because of this. I didn't realize there had to be this part of mystery involved.
There was, yep, and it was the co-discovery process together, and that it was almost like a lifeline, that I don't think I could have done this on my own, but partly because having the commitment to him really reinforced the commitment to me. I mean, ultimately, it was a commitment to me. I was committing to him, but really, you come right down to it. I could have faked half those push-ups. I could have said, "Oh yeah, boy, that was a tough workout today. Click, here's a picture of me." That would have been violating my commitment to me.
And it's almost easy to do that too.
Yeah, and I think that the power of that connection of going through this together was helping us through those tough times. It got to a point where I could just tell from the text message what sort of day he was having. If I just got a picture and no text, I didn't worry about if I offended him or anything like that. I knew he's having a tough one. I could tell by the time of year it was, whether he's going through a challenging part with family or with work or whatever it is, just from a single text, from a picture, from a couple words. It was really interesting to that depth of connection.
Yeah, and in an age when everyone is yearning for connection, it seems like, especially for long distance. My older brother actually lives in Boston, and so it's tough. He has 2 kids, and he's on his way home, and gives me a call, and I'm off doing something else, and I can't answer it. And that was our one chance, because he's driving home to a 4 and a 2-year-old, and once he gets there, he can't talk on the phone for a long time. And so it is beautiful to see that there can be a rich form of connection despite the distance. And for someone listening who might be like, I want to reconnect with that sibling, with that friend, with that parent, what would be one piece of advice from these lessons from this book that you would say, here's one small way to start that connection again?
I would recommend that people take on, it doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be exercise, but take on something with a sibling, with a friend, with whatever you want to get, and make it regular. Because it doesn't take long to send off a text message once a day. It's something powerful. I mean, and you could send a picture of the best thing you saw that day to a friend. You could do it, the best song you heard. I mean, there's so many things that you could make this around. Ours happened to be about exercise. I think there's something about that regular connection now, and there's something really counterintuitive to me about this, because I think social media is making us more isolated than ever before. We're seeing these idealized versions of each other. That's all the good stuff that's happening, but none of the bad stuff. And somehow with reaching out and connecting by text message every day, you get the more of the authentic. You get the good, you get the bad. I mean, you get it all. I think that's what we're yearning for as people. We're yearning for these genuine connections to each other.
Yeah, it's a more wholesome and holistic form of digital connection, what you're speaking about, versus posting on a cork board on the hallway and then see who passes by and says something about it, which is kind of like the version of a social media wall.
Yeah, it gives you permission to have a bad day. If you're connecting with somebody every day, you can have a bad day and you can share that too.
And that's a basis for intimacy.
That isn't it? It totally is. And then I think, if you think about that's the heart of, 2 brothers who are really finding intimacy and love. That's not something guys talk about,
No, no way.
right? Not at all.
No, I don't need intimacy. What are you talking about?
Right.
I don't need that.
But ultimately, that's what
Yeah.
we were finding. That's what we were creating a relationship that was far deeper than we ever had.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's something that growing up with two older brothers, I take for granted um, the brotherly love that can be connected. And then once I grow older, I'm like, oh, like giving my brother a hug
Yeah.
is somewhat scary for guys. Don't do that, but
Yeah.
it feels way better to be kind of vulnerable and to put ourselves on the line and show appreciation and show words of affirmation towards one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and it really then we can help support each other through tough times. One of the stories we uncover in this book is the loss of my brother's loss of a child. And that obviously leaves some really deep scars. And I think part of both our exercise journey and then subsequently writing the book was uncovering some of those and dealing with those, and me helping him process some of those scars, him being vulnerable and able to process some of those. I think that there is just there's when we develop this sort of connection with each other, I think there's almost no limit to how we can grow and how we can uncover those parts inside of us that need a spotlight shone on them, maybe.
Wow. Yeah, it's like even a superficial medium like exercise can be an avenue to discuss the hardships, the realities of life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beautiful thing about this is like you're saying, you can choose anything. You can choose favorite song of the day.
Yeah.
Send a friend a tasty jam.
Yeah, exactly.
By doing that back and forth, you develop a new language that suddenly someone sends a sad song and you go,
You know exactly where they are, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
everything can be a medium for that.
yep. Yep. And if you've been doing this and you all of a sudden get that sad song, you're going to pick up that phone and reach out. You're going to go for a deeper connection. And we did have some deeper connections throughout that year. Sometimes we saw each other face to face 2-3 times throughout the year. Sometimes we reached out for a phone call. Most of it is a daily text message exchange, but it does provide that opening so that should you do need something deeper, you can reach out, you can connect with the person.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's amazing how things can be that tool.
Yeah.
And that it's not just there's other ways to make connection by just using words.
Yeah.
There's so many different things we have access to. Now, being in person is easier because you have body language. If you can read body language, you can display body language, and you can do so many things with movement in space. But then when you're separated by thousands of miles, there's other forms that we have to go to. And one way is to just send a picture of the exercise. Yeah.
And I think maybe as guys that we don't do so well with words sometimes, right? We're not as good at expressing ourselves in words, but exercise is a way that we can connect. It's a way that we can share and bond that doesn't take a whole lot of words.
Yeah.
If I'm going through the same sort of exercise challenge as he is, I know where he is. I know what he's going through. I know what he's struggling with, and he knows the same about me.
Yeah. After a moment of difficulty and then saying like, we're going to do the exercise anyways. And then after you complete it and you say, I did it. It's like a feeling of like complete exhaustion of accomplishment. And the person can even just say, good job. And that alone could be a lot of weight to it. Actually, at our house here, we and the two roommates, we actually did a push-up challenge where we tried to do 100 push-ups in a row and completely feel that connection between each other when we're trying to get there. And it's not an easy task to do 100 in a row without stopping. And the simple affirmations of acknowledging each other's slow progress, it is addicting, and feels so good to help each other through that.
Yeah. And even if it's arbitrary, I mean, 100 push-ups is impressive, but it's an arbitrary number. And yet it's a mountain. In some ways, it's a mountain we climb, and it is nothing sacred about that mountain. but boy, it sure feels good to climb it.
Yeah, we make it sacred, huh? We make mountains sacred out of it. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. In fact, it's maybe a dictum that we can kind of make out of this is choose a mountain to climb with someone.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a hill. That's okay too.
Yeah, and and I'll tell you one other one that we did. I think this was October or November. One time, we started to come up with monthly challenges just to make it interesting. And both of our least preferred exercise is pull-ups. With a pull-up bar. I just hate those. There's an image in I Am Legend where Will Smith is in a doorway and he's doing like 30 of these pull-ups. It's like,
Yeah,
no way,
yeah, it's in
Will.
the beginning of the film. Yeah, yeah.
That's ridiculous. So we decided to make November our pull-up month. And I think we started with 15. You couldn't do 15 at a time, but
It's
you
hard.
do 15 in however many sets you need to do, and then add one each day. So by the end of the month, you're doing 45 pull-ups. Again, not at a time. I'm not saying I did 45, but I got able to do 10 pull-ups at a time. So, but just that challenge of, okay, I'm going to add one to it. I'm going to add one to it each day for the month. And he's going to be doing the same thing. That's another mountain. It's a hill. It pushes you and makes it interesting. And what's the weird thing, and this is kind of messed up, but I would find actually I'd be excited the night before a new monthly challenge. It's like October 31st, and I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for pull-ups tomorrow. They're gonna sound so bad. But by the end of the month, they're gonna get better.
Yeah, and that's where I feel purpose lies. When we feel excited about something, that's when we know we're aligned. Even if it's something that we're kind of like, I don't know why I'm excited about this. Like, good. That's that weird mixture of emotions. That's where purpose lies. That's when you found something.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, we were creating purpose out of those exercises, weren't we? That's a really good point, Jason. Yeah.
So as we kind of go towards the end of this the episode here, I have a couple more questions. One more is I'm interested in how the consequences of attention in the mind to this, and what happens to our mind when we climb that mountain with somebody. What is the consequences to our mind and our attention after that?
I think that to me there's a much greater awareness, a greater, to get back to your ideas on purpose. I think there's a centering of our attention around the broader purpose, whether it's a connection to somebody, whether it's a purpose in what we want to be doing in life. I'll just share a really quick story that near the end of our year-long challenge, my brother had every month, he took the 30 photos that I texted him, and he made a snap
collage kind of thing.
Yeah, a collage of them and sent it to me, a photo collage. And so I had, by mid-December, I had 11 of these from each of the previous 11 months. He asked me to lay them out and see what I saw. And I laid them out, and it's like I'm seeing the trees. I'm not seeing the forest at all. I'm just like I'm seeing Stephen do push-ups and Stephen running up. And I came up with a few observations, and I said, yeah, I'm not getting much in them. Maybe I should look more. And he said, I was seeing. He said, I'm seeing that when you're in California, you look relaxed and happy, and when you're in Arizona, you're looking stressed out. He said, right now, it seems to me that you're working so that you can retire so you can move to California. He said, how about if you didn't have to do that? How about if you could move to California and work, and then you wouldn't have to retire to get to be where you want to be? Wow. And it was just like, my mind was blown. It's like, I hadn't really thought about that, which seems like, how could you not think of that, Steve? But it had that possibility, hadn't occurred to me of, why can't you do your work where you want to be, living the life you want to be living? That's essentially what he said to me. And the crazy thing is, about 8 months after he said that, I got a call from the president of CGU here, who's a friend, asking my wife and I to come out and just visit campus, just spend a weekend with them.
There you go. That's how the bait is.
I mean,
let's just visit.
And then that resulted in us moving to California. But but there was something prophetic in what he said there. Look at who you are. Look at where you're enjoying life. Why live life so that you can enjoy it later when you could be enjoying it and living it today? There was, I don't know, that was a really powerful message for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a letting go. It sounds like an allowance of making a decision without having it be a reward.
Yeah.
Doing what you want to do without it being some sort of reward to wait until ellipses, to wait till then.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Wow. And wow, that's powerful. So for anybody who wants to write a book, what are some of your lessons for how you were able to balance writing, consulting, teaching? Like, and maybe it could be as simple as walking me through kind of a productivity habit that you use to create, to be creative amongst all these responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a really weird one, and this way may not work for many people, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So I was about, I probably wrote about a third of the book or so, a quarter to a third of the book, and then I got severe writer's block. And I was just like, why am I doing this? Nobody's going to read it. My university doesn't value this. Why am I spending my time doing this? I've got, like you said, I've got lots of other stuff on the plate. And so it sat for about 9 months. Then an author friend who I'm connected with on Twitter, I saw one of his tweets, and he said the first thing any writer has to do, any author has to do, is finish writing. And I was like, oh, Don, you just blew my mind there. It's like, yes, I've got to finish this. What I found was my productive time for writing was when I was on planes traveling for consulting gigs. I was doing leadership training in Singapore and in Dubai, and had these crazy, 15-hour flights and stuff. That was my productive time. I got so many chapters written. Or while I was sitting in a hotel room in Dubai with severe jet lag up in the middle of the night, I cranked out a couple chapters in the middle of the night because I'm sitting there, and what else am I going to do? I'm wide awake. I just found there's something about being on an airplane where you are shutting out the rest of the world. You don't have those interferences, those distractions. I don't have emails coming in.
You don't have the refrigerator to go eat some food.
Right.
You don't have anything else to do.
Nothing else, that you're locked in that seat. And what a great time. And I mean, there are times when I sat there on that plane writing away, and it was a chapter, it was a really emotional chapter. I got tears streaming down my face. I don't even care what I'm looking at, because I'm in the heart of writing right now. It's like,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. So that was my secret, is long overseas flights.
Yeah. So like finding that cabin, that shelter that blocks out sound, the white noise that makes us feel crammed. We can't move, we can't get up. There's no point to getting up, and it's very easy. There's no decision to do that. It's like you're on the plane. That's it. There's nothing else to do. Once you make that decision to get on the plane, there's nothing else to do. That's it. No turning back kind of mentality that it creates. That's a good tip for people to think about, maybe crafting a place that is similar to that and having it be only that, or using those opportunities while traveling.
And I've heard of other writers who have done things like, rented a VRBO, a mountain, cabin, no TV, no internet, just them in a cabin. And again, it's that isolation, that shutting off of the distractions, because the writing is not easy. I mean, it's creative. It takes work. And I think there are so many, whenever you're doing something that takes work like that, any distractions that are easier, you're going to go to.
Yeah. It's not as simple as turning your phone on airplane. Yeah. It's putting your phone a mile away. Like that's why I keep my phone in the kitchen, and I keep it as far away as possible, so that when I'm working, I have to get up and have to actually have effort to go use it.
Yeah. And getting out of the email on your system, and maybe even turning the browser off. I mean, just like as much as you can, shutting down those distractions.
Well, these are great tips. Stephen, thank you so much It's been a pleasure talking to you about all this material. And everyone who's listening, get the book, pre-order it. Is it available for pre-order, or what's
Yes,
the
it's
next
going to be
step?
available December 1st,
Okay,
2021.
December 1st.
Pushing up.
We'll put the website in the description below.
Perfect.
Is there anything else how people can kind of connect to you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, reach out to me. I'm a professor at CGU, Stephen.Gilliland at cgu.edu. So would love to hear from people.
Cool. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Jason. Enjoyed it.